Welcome to Silent Crime Case, where the darkest mysteries speak louder than words. Today, we unravel a story that chills to the bone, a tale of betrayal, calculated terror, and a disappearance that has baffled investigators for decades. What began as a serene day along a picturesque coastline turned into the discovery of a shocking crime scene. An abandoned car perched on a cliff's edge, secrets hidden within its shattered glass and blood-stained seats. But this is no ordinary crime. As detectives dug deeper, they unearthed a twisted web of family tragedy, meticulous planning, and a fugitive who vanished without a trace. Could this be the perfect crime? Or will justice catch up with the man who left behind nothing but devastation? Stay with us as we delve into the chilling saga of Henry Latham and the haunting case that still echoes through time. Prepare to uncover the silence. On the serene afternoon of Friday, May 12, 1985, a group of travelers drove along the famed Sunset Coastal Drive in the southern region of Clearview. Known for its breathtaking cliffs, lush forests, and azure beaches, this road winds through picturesque landscapes and iconic landmarks. One of the most celebrated attractions is the Sunstone Arches, towering limestone formations that command attention near the coastal preserve. Just a few miles west of this site lies Solitude Gorge, an inlet encased by steep cliffs and pristine, secluded beaches. This area, although captivating, holds a darker allure for its history of tragedy. As the tourists approached the parking area at Solitude Gorge, they noticed something peculiar. Fresh tire tracks in the gravel veered away from the designated lot, heading directly toward the cliff edge. Alarmed, the travelers followed the trail, their curiosity morphing into dread. The tracks terminated abruptly at the precipice. Peering over the edge, they spotted something shocking: an old sedan, precariously balanced on a narrow ledge 30 feet below. Waves roared ominously, threatening to claim the vehicle at any moment. One of the travelers fetched binoculars for a closer look. The car, a vintage blue sedan, appeared battered, its hood crumpled and debris scattered around. The driver's door was ajar, revealing a thick black hose protruding from the exhaust pipe and snaking through the window. The realization that this was no ordinary accident sent shivers down their spines. Rushing back to their vehicle, they noticed a small trench near the parking area, filled with rocks. Someone had deliberately built a ramp, enabling the car to be driven over the edge. With urgency, the group drove to the nearby town of Brookhaven to report the discovery. The local authorities, puzzled and alarmed, began their investigation into what would soon unravel as a sinister mystery that defied explanation. When Officer Adrian Kent arrived at Solitude Gorge, he immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. With binoculars, he observed the vehicle precariously perched on the ledge, its front axle teetering dangerously over the edge. What struck him most was the hose trailing from the exhaust into the driver's window, an unsettling hallmark of deliberate planning. Minutes later, members of the Brookhaven Rescue Squad arrived, led by veteran climber Matthew Price. Scaling the steep cliffs, Matthew carefully approached the car. Its state was chilling. The front of the car was smashed flat as though it had landed nose first before bouncing back upright. Around it lay scattered debris, shards of glass, partially eaten apples, a roll of electrical tape, a butter knife, and even .22 caliber bullets. A plastic slip-on shoe was lodged among the rubble, hinting at chaotic movements. The hose tied to the exhaust was particularly alarming. It had been fitted snugly over the pipe, fastened to the roof rack in 2 places with remaining gaps stuffed with rags. The meticulous setup suggested more than a desperate act. It hinted at a sinister play. Inside the car, Matthew found an eerie scene. Blood smeared the back seat and roof lining, while a rifle rested barrel down against the clutch pedal. Among the vehicle's peculiar contents were large petrol containers, a tarpaulin, and an assortment of electrical tools. The combination of these items, especially the petrol and rifle, suggested the vehicle could have been rigged as both a weapon and a death trap. The lingering metallic scent made Matthew pause. He knew this was no ordinary crime scene. The officers above debated how to handle the vehicle's removal. With dusk fast approaching, they decided to secure it overnight and attempt recovery in daylight. Officer Kent returned to the station with the evidence, including the rifle, tarpaulin, and blood-stained coat, to uncover the vehicle owner's identity. Records revealed the car was registered to 38-year-old Henry Latham of Meadowbrook Lane. As investigators pieced together these clues, they realized this was not a straightforward case of tragedy, but the beginning of a calculated mystery. The Latham residence on Meadowbrook Lane exuded an air of normalcy, but its quiet exterior betrayed the horrors hidden within. Officer Adrian Kent and Detective Clara Vance arrived at the modest brick house to find the curtains drawn and no signs of activity. After knocking went unanswered, they circled the property. A side window unlocked provided access. Kent climbed through and opened the front door for Vance, and the two began their search. In the children's bedroom, the scene was harrowing. The unmade beds were heavily stained with dark patches that resembled dried blood. A teddy bear lay abandoned, its fur stiff and matted. The disarray suggested violence, though the lack of visible struggle hinted the victims had been attacked in their sleep. The master bedroom was equally grim. Blood was splattered on the bed and floor, and faint smears on the walls suggested attempts to clean the area. On the kitchen table sat a half-eaten breakfast, a bottle of milk and a box of cereal, suggesting someone had lingered here even after the crime. One of the most chilling discoveries was a note left for the milkman. No further deliveries until further notice. Beside it, another note, hastily scrawled, listed a relative's name and address in Dublin under the title, Next of Kin. These details painted a picture of premeditation, as though the writer knew the house would soon be abandoned. Outside, the backyard revealed more evidence of Henry's disturbing planning. A large scorched patch of grass indicated a recent bonfire. Investigators speculated that this was used to destroy incriminating evidence. Leading from the back door to the garage was a faint trail of blood. Inside the garage, they found the removed backseat of the Latham's car, its fabric stained with dried blood. A coil of black rubber hose identical to the one found in the vehicle and tools further connected the crime scene to the house. Perhaps most chillingly, the police discovered fresh cleaning fluid in the living room. The bottle's cap had an attached brush, still matted with fibers matching the carpet. The surface of the fluid was frothy, as though it had been used recently. Wet patches on the carpet suggested Henry had attempted to clean the scene, but abandoned the effort abruptly. Officers theorized that he had been interrupted, possibly when they first arrived that evening. This house, seemingly ordinary, had become a chilling monument to Henry's twisted meticulousness. As the investigators stood in the silent home, they could feel the weight of a tragedy too monstrous to fully comprehend. At dawn, the Brookhaven Rescue Squad regrouped at Solitude Gorge to recover the vehicle. Matthew Price, accompanied by his colleague Lucas Grant, descended the cliff with care. Securing the car with heavy chains, they worked swiftly to stabilize it. Once anchored, they resumed their examination of the vehicle's interior. Lifting a tarp from the back seat revealed a horrifying sight: the bodies of 3 children, their faces peaceful yet haunting. Each was clad in pajamas, their small forms wrapped in blankets. Beneath them lay another figure, a woman identified later as Teresa Latham. Her injuries suggested a violent end, yet the meticulous wrapping of the bodies hinted at an unsettling mixture of brutality and care. Price's voice shook as he relayed the findings to those above. The bodies were carefully lifted and transported to Brookhaven's forensic lab for examination. Preliminary reports revealed catastrophic head injuries on all victims, consistent with blunt force trauma. Teresa's body bore additional evidence of electrocution, a detail that would prove crucial in understanding the horror that unfolded. The recovery of the bodies intensified the urgency of locating Henry Latham. If he was the perpetrator, his actions indicated careful planning and chilling resolve. Investigators questioned why a man described as mild-mannered by neighbors would commit such unspeakable acts. The community, once serene, was now gripped by fear and speculation. As officers pieced together the sequence of events, the shadows around Henry Latham's motives deepened. The juxtaposition of domestic normalcy and calculated violence painted a picture of a man whose secrets ran deeper than anyone had imagined. The forensic examination of Teresa Latham and her 3 children, Samantha, aged 12, Jacob, aged 8, and Emily, aged 6, unveiled a harrowing picture of their final moments. Each child bore catastrophic head injuries inflicted while they slept, consistent with the blunt force of a hammer found at the crime scene. Investigators determined that 12-year-old Samantha had sustained multiple blows, suggesting she may have woken up during the attack. The sight of such brutality shocked even seasoned forensic professionals. Teresa's injuries, though similar, also included evidence of electrocution, a grim detail that hinted at the deliberate and premeditated nature of the crime. The use of a homemade electrical device discovered in the wreckage of the car added an unsettling layer of complexity to the case. A key discovery during the investigation was the advanced pregnancy of Teresa. Medical examination revealed she was 3 months along, making her unborn child an unexpected 5th victim. Detectives speculated whether this pregnancy had played a role in the tragedy. Letters found in the Latham household painted a picture of tension surrounding the pregnancy, with Teresa expressing uncertainty and frustration. One unfinished note mentioned her struggles with exhaustion and her hesitation about the future, leaving investigators wondering if Henry Latham had felt trapped by the prospect of another child. The Latham home itself provided a wealth of disturbing clues. The garage housed several critical items: the removed back seat of the family sedan, coils of black rubber hose matching those found at Solitude Gorge, and a cache of tools. Blood-stained objects, including a wrench and an engineer's hammer, were cataloged and analyzed, confirming their role in the violence. Outside, the scorched patch of grass in the backyard suggested a bonfire had been used to destroy evidence. Witnesses later recalled seeing thick, acrid smoke rising from the Latham property in the days leading up to the murders. Further forensic examination of the car reinforced theories of meticulous planning. Blood patterns indicated that the victims had been positioned with care, their bodies wrapped in blankets to minimize movement during transport. Electrical leads found in the car, combined with the manipulated fuse box in the house, suggested that Henry had tested his homemade electrocution device before its grisly use. Investigators marveled at the precision of the modifications, noting that the setup required significant technical knowledge. The discovery of a newspaper clipping about abortion reform and a partially written letter addressed to Teresa's sister added a deeply personal dimension to the investigation. The clipping, titled "A Mother's Agony," detailed the struggles of a woman seeking an abortion. Detectives speculated that the article's presence, alongside Teresa's letter, could point to unresolved conflict between the couple. The letter included phrases like, "I have been so upset," and "Why did you go off the pill?" hinting at deeper tensions. Adding to the mystery, neighbors provided accounts of Henry's recent behavior. He had been seen making multiple trips to the local landfill, filling his car with discarded items. These activities, combined with the construction of bonfires, suggested a deliberate effort to eliminate belongings that could later connect him to the crime. Witnesses described seeing him haul bundles of material from the house, but no one had imagined the grim reality behind these actions. Finally, investigators uncovered evidence of Henry's financial preparations for a potential escape. While the Latham family appeared well off, with a nearly paid-off home and savings, Henry's covert withdrawals from hidden accounts hinted at months of planning. Neighbors mentioned his frequent visits to local auction houses, where he sold tools and other household items. The records of these sales revealed an unsettling pattern of liquidating assets in small increments, likely to avoid suspicion. By the end of their examination, the detectives had assembled a damning array of evidence, but questions about motive and Henry's whereabouts persisted. The sheer methodical nature of the crime contrasted sharply with the image of a devoted family man painted by those who knew him. This contradiction left the community reeling and set the stage for one of the most intense manhunts in the region's history. As the investigation progressed, the search for Henry Latham intensified. Authorities expanded their efforts, mobilizing resources across neighboring towns and cities. The case quickly gained national attention, with media outlets broadcasting the family's tragic story and Henry's disappearance. Flyers featuring Henry's face were distributed widely, and the public was urged to report any sightings. Detective Clara Vance, leading the investigation, worked tirelessly to piece together Henry's movements before the crime. Witnesses reported seeing him frequenting auction houses, where he sold various household items. Neighbors mentioned unusual activity during the week leading up to the tragedy, including the sound of hammering late at night and strange bonfires in the backyard. One neighbor even recalled hearing muffled arguments, though they had dismissed it at the time. Forensic analysis revealed that Henry had replaced household fuses with thick wires, preventing them from blowing under electrical surges. This deliberate modification aligned with the discovery of the electrocution device used on Teresa and the children. It became increasingly evident that Henry had meticulously planned the crime. Further complicating the case was a lack of financial motive. The Lathams were relatively well off, with a nearly paid-off house, substantial savings, and additional assets. Investigators speculated that the crime stemmed from personal or psychological factors, but the exact motive remained elusive. Leads began trickling in from across the region. A truck driver claimed to have picked up a hitchhiker matching Henry's description, though the information couldn't be verified. Another sighting placed Henry at a diner 2 towns over, nervously sipping coffee before leaving abruptly. Despite these tips, concrete evidence of his whereabouts remained scarce. The public's fascination with the case grew as the mystery deepened. Why had Henry committed such a heinous act? And where could he have gone? As weeks turned into months, the manhunt became a race against time, with investigators fearing that Henry might vanish entirely, if not caught soon. While the search for Henry Latham continued, investigators found themselves entangled in a web of misleading leads and unexpected twists. One such lead came from a woman in a neighboring town who claimed to have seen Henry boarding a late-night bus. She described him as disheveled, wearing a cap pulled low over his face. However, bus records failed to confirm the sighting, leaving detectives frustrated. Another curious development arose when authorities discovered that Henry had been withdrawing cash in small increments from an account under a pseudonym. These transactions suggested he had been stockpiling funds for months, perhaps in preparation for his disappearance. Detectives traced the withdrawals to various ATMs across the region, but found no surveillance footage due to outdated cameras. Meanwhile, the media's portrayal of the case took on a life of its own. Speculative headlines suggested everything from a secret double life to involvement with a criminal network. Conspiracy theories swirled online, with some claiming that Henry had fled the country or was hiding in plain sight. Despite the noise, investigators remained focused on the evidence. A breakthrough seemed imminent when a park ranger reported finding a campsite deep in the woods near Solitude Gorge. Among the remnants of a fire pit and discarded food wrappers was a torn piece of fabric resembling Henry's shirt. Yet, DNA testing yielded inconclusive results, dashing hopes of a definitive lead. Detective Vance, undeterred, urged her team to revisit old evidence. They re-examined the items recovered from the Latham residence and car, hoping for overlooked clues. Among the findings was a map marked with various locations, some circled and others crossed out. This discovery raised questions about Henry's intentions. Were these places he had visited or destinations he planned to reach? Despite the mounting obstacles, one thing was clear. Henry Latham had gone to great lengths to cover his tracks. The investigation's twists only deepened the mystery, leaving everyone wondering if they were chasing a ghost. As the evidence mounted, prosecutors began constructing a theory to present in court assuming Henry Latham was ever captured. The meticulous planning of the crime suggested premeditation, a key factor in securing a conviction. Prosecutors believed Henry's actions were driven by a desperate attempt to escape a life he no longer wanted, though the exact catalyst remained speculative. Key to their case was the evidence found at the Latham residence. The replaced fuses, the homemade electrocution device, and the blood-stained tools painted a picture of cold calculation. Prosecutors theorized that Henry had attacked his family in the dead of night, ensuring minimal resistance. The positioning of the bodies in the car indicated a deliberate attempt to stage a scene, possibly to mislead investigators into believing it was a murder-suicide. The court proceedings would also focus on Henry's behavior in the weeks leading up to the crime. Witness testimonies described him as increasingly withdrawn and obsessive about household projects. The bonfires, trips to the landfill, and unusual auction activity suggested he was methodically clearing out his life. The prosecution anticipated challenges in proving motive. The absence of financial struggles or documented marital discord complicated their narrative. However, the discovery of the abortion article and Teresa's partially written letter hinted at underlying tensions. Prosecutors suggested that the impending arrival of another child may have been a tipping point for Henry, pushing him toward his gruesome plan. While the prosecution's case was compelling, it hinged on capturing Henry. Without his testimony or confession, certain elements of the crime would remain speculative. Still, the circumstantial evidence was damning enough to paint him as the sole perpetrator. The theory, while chilling, offered a semblance of logic to an otherwise incomprehensible act. As the investigation dragged on, the Latham family tragedy left an indelible mark on the Brookhaven community. Once a tranquil suburb, Crestwood became synonymous with one of the most shocking crimes in the region's history. Neighbors grappled with the horror of what had unfolded in their midst, struggling to reconcile the Henry they knew with the monster painted by the evidence. Candlelight vigils were held for Teresa and her children, with hundreds of mourners gathering to pay their respects. Friends and relatives shared stories of Teresa's kindness, Samantha's bright smile, Jacob's curiosity, and Emily's playful spirit. Their lives, though tragically short, left an enduring legacy of love and warmth that contrasted sharply with the darkness surrounding their deaths. Local schools organized memorials for the children, with classmates penning heartfelt letters and drawings. The sight of their desks, now empty, served as a somber reminder of the fragility of life. Teachers described the siblings as well-mannered and eager to learn, making their loss even more profound. Amid the grief, fear took hold of the community. The knowledge that Henry was still at large created an atmosphere of unease. Parents kept their children indoors, and neighbors grew suspicious of strangers. The police presence in the area increased, with patrols ensuring residents felt safe. Brookhaven's collective mourning extended beyond its borders, as news of the case captivated the nation. The Latham's story became a rallying cry for justice, with many calling for harsher penalties for family annihilators. Their tragedy served as a grim reminder of the hidden struggles that can fester behind closed doors. As weeks turned into months, theories about Henry Latham's whereabouts multiplied. Some speculated he had fled the country, possibly using a forged passport to start a new life abroad. Others believed he was hiding in plain sight, blending into society under an assumed identity. A few theorized he had perished in the wilderness, his body yet to be discovered. The map found in the Latham residence became a focal point for investigators and amateur sleuths alike. The circled locations included remote cabins, abandoned mines, and secluded hiking trails. Detectives scoured these areas, but their efforts yielded no trace of Henry. Psychologists weighed in on the case, offering insights into Henry's potential mindset. Some argued that his actions reflected a deep-seated sense of control, driving him to orchestrate every detail of the crime. Others suggested he might have exhibited signs of psychopathy, allowing him to commit such heinous acts without remorse. The possibility of outside help also emerged. Could Henry have had an accomplice who aided in his escape? This theory gained traction after a witness reported seeing two men at a gas station late at night, loading supplies into a car matching the description of Henry's vehicle. Despite the many theories, one question loomed large. What could compel a man to annihilate his own family? The lack of concrete answers only fueled speculation, turning the case into a national obsession. For the investigators, the focus remained on one goal: bringing Henry Latham to justice no matter how long it took. Months after Henry Latham's disappearance, investigators turned their attention to international leads. Henry's past revealed ties to relatives in Ireland and a brief stint in Canada during his youth. With these connections in mind, authorities issued alerts to border control agencies and shared his description with Interpol. One intriguing lead came from Dublin, where a woman claimed she had seen a man matching Henry's description frequenting a local pub. According to her account, the man spoke with an Irish accent but seemed guarded about his background. She remembered him as being particularly interested in current events, often asking others about political developments overseas. Despite her detailed report, investigators couldn't corroborate her story. Meanwhile, Canadian authorities followed a tip from a trucker who claimed to have given a ride to a man resembling Henry. The passenger, he said, spoke with a distinct Irish lilt and carried only a small duffel bag. While these sightings kept hope alive, they ultimately led to dead ends. Detective Clara Vance suspected Henry might have obtained false documents to aid his escape. A search of his financial records uncovered evidence of small but consistent payments to a known forger in the region. These findings lent credence to the theory that Henry had planned his disappearance months in advance. Despite extensive collaboration with international agencies, no solid evidence of Henry's whereabouts emerged. As time passed, the case grew colder, though it remained an active file. The Latham family's tragic story became a cautionary tale, its unresolved nature a chilling reminder of how a man could seemingly vanish without a trace. The Latham case continued to grip the nation, sparking debates about justice, morality, and the psyche of family annihilators. Media coverage painted Henry Latham as a monstrous figure, yet some commentators questioned whether societal pressures contributed to his actions. This polarizing discourse only intensified as amateur sleuths took to online forums, dissecting every detail of the case. The public's fascination with the case was fueled by its many unanswered questions. Documentaries, podcasts, and true crime shows explored Henry's life, delving into his childhood, marriage, and the days leading up to the crime. While these portrayals varied in tone, they all emphasized one unshakable truth: the Latham family's tragedy was a devastating loss. One particularly vocal group of advocates pushed for a deeper investigation into mental health issues. They argued that signs of Henry's potential unraveling might have been overlooked by those closest to him. However, neighbors and friends insisted that Henry's actions had come out of nowhere, shattering the image of a devoted husband and father. The court of public opinion also scrutinized the police's handling of the case. Critics questioned why certain leads were pursued while others were dismissed. Some accused law enforcement of focusing too heavily on the theory of Henry's guilt, potentially missing alternative explanations. Despite this backlash, Detective Vance and her team remained steadfast in their conviction that Henry was the perpetrator. Over time, the case became emblematic of larger societal issues, sparking discussions about family dynamics, financial strain, and the stigma surrounding mental health. While these conversations were necessary, they offered little solace to those mourning Teresa, Samantha, Jacob, and Emily. Their story became a rallying cry for justice, even as their killer eluded capture. In the shadow of Henry Latham's disappearance, the memory of Teresa and her children endured. Friends and family worked tirelessly to preserve their legacy, ensuring that their lives were remembered for more than the tragedy that ended them. Teresa's sister, Margaret, became a vocal advocate for victims of domestic violence. She spearheaded initiatives to raise awareness about the warning signs of abuse and the importance of community support. In interviews, Margaret described Teresa as a loving mother who devoted herself entirely to her children. She recalled Teresa's laughter, her love for baking, and her unwavering faith. The Latham Children's School established a scholarship in their honor, supporting students who displayed kindness and academic excellence. Every year, a ceremony was held to celebrate the recipients, with teachers and students sharing stories about Samantha's bright spirit, Jacob's curiosity, and Emily's infectious giggle. These tributes ensured that the siblings' impact lived on, even in their absence. Teresa's friends organized annual community events to honor her memory, often combining them with fundraising efforts for local charities. These gatherings served as a reminder of the love and light Teresa brought to those around her. While the Latham family's story was one of heartbreak, their legacy inspired meaningful change. The tragedy prompted conversations about prevention and accountability, highlighting the importance of vigilance in protecting vulnerable individuals. Though their lives were cut short, Teresa and her children left a lasting mark on those who knew them, and on a community determined to ensure their story was never forgotten. Decades after Henry Latham's disappearance, a potential breakthrough reignited hope. In 2018, a retired detective named Walter Harris revisited the case with fresh eyes. He pored over old files, determined to uncover what had been missed. Harris focused on a previously overlooked detail, a receipt found in the Latham home for a rental storage unit in a nearby town. The storage unit, long abandoned, was reopened under Harris's supervision. Inside, investigators found a treasure trove of evidence, including photographs, handwritten notes, and personal items belonging to Henry. Among the items was a map marked with additional locations, suggesting he had created a network of safe houses. One note, scribbled in the margins of a notebook, read, "The ocean hides many secrets." This cryptic message fueled speculation that Henry may have fled overseas or staged his death at sea. The discovery of a box containing international currency and a forged passport added weight to this theory. Despite these revelations, Henry's ultimate fate remained unclear. The storage unit's contents provided tantalizing clues but no definitive answers. Still, the renewed attention on the case sparked a surge of public interest, with tips flooding in from across the globe. Detective Vance, now retired, expressed cautious optimism. "Every piece of evidence brings us closer to the truth," she said. "We may not have all the answers yet, but we're not giving up." As the years stretched into decades, the Latham case remained one of the most infamous mysteries in modern history. Henry's face, aged through digital rendering, continued to appear on wanted posters and news broadcasts. Yet no confirmed sightings emerged, leaving his fate a question mark. The case's unresolved nature haunted those who had dedicated their lives to finding answers. For Detective Vance, now in her 80s, the Latham investigation was both her greatest challenge and her deepest regret. "I'll never forget the faces of Teresa and those kids," she said in a recent interview. "I hope wherever Henry is, he knows he didn't get away with it. Not really." Despite the lack of resolution, the Latham case inspired advancements in forensic science and investigative techniques. Cold case units worldwide adopted methods developed during the search for Henry, ensuring that future investigations would benefit from the lessons learned. For the people of Brookhaven, the Latham tragedy became a somber part of their history. Memorial plaques adorned the local school and church, serving as quiet reminders of lives lost too soon. Annual vigils continued to draw crowds, uniting a community in their shared commitment to never forget. Though the mystery of Henry Latham endures, the legacy of his family shines brighter. Their story serves as a testament to the resilience of those left behind, and a reminder that justice, though elusive, remains worth pursuing. In the end, the Latham case is more than a tale of tragedy. It's a call to remember, reflect, and resolve never to let such darkness prevail again. Thank you for joining us on Silent Crime Case, where we uncover the chilling truths behind the world's most enigmatic mysteries. The story of Henry Latham and his vanished family remains a haunting reminder of the secrets people can harbor and the lengths some will go to conceal the truth. Decades later, the questions still linger. Did Henry outwit justice? Or is the truth hidden beneath the waves or buried in the shadows of his past? We may never know the full extent of what happened, but the memory of Teresa, Samantha, Jacob, and Emily Latham lives on, a sobering testament to lives cut tragically short and the unanswered cries for justice. If you have theories, insights, or simply want to share your thoughts on this case, let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Silent Crime Case for more deep dives into mysteries that refuse to stay silent. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, even the quietest cases have a story to tell.